All right, sweet. Okay, so yeah, sorry this room is so large. I feel like we could have got a smaller room, but that's okay. So to get started, while we're talking, if you could go to Learning Suite, and then what we're going to be covering today is the final review. So if you want, you can download both of these. This first one is what we're actually going to be working on. And then the second one right here is the solutions to what we're going to be working on. So if you have to leave early or something like that, that's fine. All of this is recorded, by the way. So if you need to leave or take off, I'm totally fine with that too as well. So while that's going, I'll open this up. But just to go over real quick what I have here, I just took some notes. Just kind of briefly cover what's the final is going to be like. So it's going to be very similar to the midterm. It's a take-home. It's 3-hour time limit in one sitting. The final's comprehensive. Most of it will be weighted towards the second half, and I'll kind of go into that a little further detail here in a second. Open no internet homework, just not open neighbor or any human being, pretty much. It'll be available Friday morning and starting this Friday, and then it's due at least before midnight, before the last day of finals ends. And so, any questions on that so far? I feel like I covered everything. As far as content that'll be on the final, so I kind of went through and looked it over. So each of these is a subject, kind of like a tab, I guess you would say, that's going to be on the final. So it's all right there. Text, VBA. A lot of people ask about VBA. There's only really 2 questions on VBA. It's only 8% of the final. So if you're kind of stressed about that, don't be too stressed because doesn't make up that much. Finance, data tables, lookups, miscellaneous calculations, data cleaning, mega formulas, summing and counting. And then the last part is the challenge section. And basically, that's the comprehensive portion of the final. And so this entire portion is about 25% of the final. That gives you an idea that will come from the first half of what we learned this semester. And it's basically, it's like one problem. It's a bunch of mini problems, but they're all related to each other. And so maybe some things, this doesn't cover everything, but I'd say looking over, let's see if I wrote it down. Just make sure you know about tables, pivot tables, and charts, I think is important too. So any questions about that so far? Cool. I just have some of my own tips, and then Ryan. So yeah, first of all, I'm Chase, and then right here's another TA. This is Ryan. So he'll be here. If you guys have any questions, feel free just to raise your hand, and he can come over and help you along the side as well. One thing I'd say, just a few pointers I'd give, is make sure to read the directions very carefully. And by that, I mean, like, make sure you read it, check for anything that's bolded, because I've just noticed a lot of students get dinged just because they fail to read a certain step or instruction while taking the final. So pay close attention to that. I'd even say go back and review if you have time. If it asks to use a specific function, use that function. But if it doesn't, then anything's kind of free game as far as that problem goes. Make sure you fill in the highlighted blue cells that he has. I've had students in the past that they put their answer not in the blue cell, and so it docks them off points. So make sure that you put your answers in the correct spot as well. Don't add or delete any rows or columns unless it tells you to. If I were to study for the final, this is just kind of my approach. I'd say study this final exam, which we're going to go over today. If you feel like today's you're working through, if you can do a lot of the problems without having to look back or wait for me to give you the answer, then I feel like that's a good indication that you're pretty well prepped for the final, that you'll do good on it. So I do that. If you struggle with time, I'd say practice trying to time yourself and see how long you can get through it. And if you can go through it fairly quickly, then that would be good. I do think, in my opinion, the final is harder than the midterm. So I would just keep that into account. I don't know how it was for Ryan, but anyways, that's just how it was for me. So if you do that, then the second thing I would do is go through the homework assignments, make sure you know those well. And then the third thing I would do, if you have even more time, is go through or even just glimpse all of the practice files that he goes through in all of his videos. Because basically what he's doing is he'll pick a file, one from like a homework assignment, and then he'll kind of, it'll be similar, but it won't be the same exact question. He'll throw that into the final. And then he'll go through his practice examples. Not all of those are in the homework, but they could potentially be in the final. So that's why I say do that. Keep it all saved in one folder. And so if you're familiar with that, as you're taking the final, you know exactly where to look and just go copy and paste. It's kind of just, that's all you got to do. And the internet's your friend. Feel free to use it as you may, because it's very helpful if you don't know exactly what to do. So other than that, Ryan, did you have any pointers or tips or anything that comes to your mind?
Honestly, the way that you outlined, which I think is right. So I wouldn't add anything different to add, but I definitely second what you said so far.
Okay, awesome. Are there any questions so far as that goes? Not? Feel free. Sounds good. All right, well, we'll start then. So I guess for those of you that just walked in, if you can go to Learning Suite real quick and go to Content and Exam Reviews. And down here at the bottom, we're going to be going over this document today. And then it's kind of set up very similar to the final. And then this is the answer key too, as well. So I'll have both of those open as well. So actually, I'll go ahead and open that up in case we need to go back if I mess anything up. Okay, cool. Let's see here. So right here, financial. So I'm not the best at finance, but all you got to really know for this section is just kind of how to plug and chug the numbers. You may get some financial formula that you may need to use or function. And I don't get too scared because usually it kind of lists what you need to do, but I don't think he'll throw any curveballs at you on this. So basically what we'll do is the IRR, you just kind of do equals, do IRR. And then if you do that, this all it asks is for values. And then anything that's in brackets is optional. So most of the time you don't have to fill that out, is what I'd say. So unless I show you today that you need to fill it out, then take note of that. But so in this case, we're just gonna grab our answers or fill these values right here. Then close it off and hit enter. And then right there, you'll have 5%. So that's IRR. I don't really know exactly behind the scenes. Maybe someone who knows finance could explain that better, but this is kind of just, he's not going to be asking you to do any analysis or interpret what it means. He's just going to want you to get that number. The next one, XIRR, there's another one right there. If you want, sometimes you come up here. It shows it up here as well. You can kind of get a little more detail. Right here, values. So you just select the values that you want right here. Same thing. And then the dates, you'll just come over and select these dates right here. And then the guess is optional. And so you just hit OK. And there's your XIRR right there. It's pretty straightforward. Any questions on that? I think it's pretty good. Yeah, I would wish. That would be good. Okay, you're looking to purchase a bond and want to compare the present value you would get on two different bonds. Both have a face value of $1,000 and an annual interest rate of 7%. Bond A will pay you $50 twice a year for 10 years, while Bond B will pay $100 at the end of each year for 10 years. What is the present value of the bonds? So we're just going to find the value of each of these bonds. So what we're going to do it is, so right here, he kind of gives you all that you need, and he even kind of tells you PV, present value. So you just type in PV, and you'll do this right there. So first thing we need is the rate. So that's 7%. And then, so one thing you got to pay close attention to while doing this is if it's annual, is it monthly, is it quarterly? So in this case, it's annual, and I think if we read this correctly, so we'll just put that in for now. The number of payments right here, that's going to be 10. But we'll also have to remember that they're paying twice a year. So what we're going to do is multiply that by 2. And then the payment amount is $50. But if remember, since our annual interest rate is yearly, then as well, we're going to have to match that. So since we're getting paid twice a year, I think it's times 2, I believe. I could be wrong. Give me a second. Anyways, we'll try it real quick and see. And then the future value is 1,000, or face value. So let me just look at this real quick. Let me see if that seems correct. So you'll pay $50 twice a year for 10 years. So, 10 times, so actually twice a year. So that would be 20, and then you're going to pay 100, because in 1 year that will be 100. So I think let's try that. Let's see. You divide the rate by 2. Yeah, that's correct. Okay. Divide the rate by 2, since we're paying twice. So if there's any paying twice a year, then you're going to have to make sure that it's all equal.
The payment is still 50.
Okay, still 50.
But it's made, there's 20 periods. It should be,
yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's that one, 1,213. So this one will be a little easier. You'll do the rate, and then the number of times a year, and then the payment is 100, and then the face value, future value is that. And then, so the type, let me just show you here real quick, the type, if you hit the comma one more time. So it says at the end of the period or the beginning of the period, so which one should we do? Unless he specifies to do at the beginning of the period, just go ahead and do the end of the period, which is 0. Or basically that's what the default is. So that should give you the answer there. Are there any questions there? Yeah. What I'll do here is, so I go through, hold on. That there for you. And then this one. Right there. Can you guys see that? I'll zoom in a little. Let's see. Okay. Oh, do it. Okay, nice. So just do equals formula text. Cool. Okay. All right. So for the next one, right here, you just inherited $100,000 from a rich uncle, when would that ever happen? And want to invest it. If you can put it into a portfolio that has 5% annual return, how long would it take in years to reach $1 million? So any guesses at which function we'll need to use here? I guess, yeah, N per, that's it. So you do N per, so the rate is 5%. The payment is going to be 0. The present value would be right here, 100,000. And the face value, future value, would be right here, 1 million. And then so right there, I'll hit enter, and you'll get about 47 years is how long it would take for you to get to that amount. So now this is kind of building off of this question. It says, using the same scenario from question 3, how much quicker would it reach $1 million if you made annual payments of $3,000 at the end of each year? So let's just start kind of what we did before. So our rate is 5,000. Our payment, so the way I look at this is when I'm doing these kind of formulas, I think, is the money leaving my hand or is it coming to me? So in the case, if I'm making annual payments of $3,000, that's coming out of my pocket and I'm giving it to someone else. Whenever it's coming out of my pocket and going to someone else, I'm going to make it negative. And so that's going to be negative 3,000. And then the present value, that's going to be the same right here, because that's going out of my pocket to invest. And then what I'm going to get in return in the future is this amount right here. So I'll get 38 years, but as you can see the question, it's not asking how long, but it wants to know the difference between what I just did here and this present year. So what I'll need to do is go in and basically take this amount subtracted from what we just did. So I don't know why it does this. It throws it into a percentage, but what all you got to do is come to general, and that converts it back to a number that it should be. So it should take about 8.43 years to reach that amount over time. Yeah. So I'll get that right here. What was that called again?
Equals formula text.
Equals formula text. Oh, you just click the cell. Sick.
Yeah.
I mean something new. Okay. That. Let's get this one. Cool. Are there any questions up to this point? Overall, I'd say just make sure to go through your homework on this one and make sure that you understand what, like, just try and go through those problems that he asked you on your homework. And I feel like that should kind of help you out there. On to the next. So tables. Zoom in here. Okay. Says here you're looking at buying a new car. You want to calculate your monthly payment and how much interest you would end up paying. The car you want to buy is $26,000, but interest rates have been changing. Fill in the following data table to show the changes from change in interest rate. So right here, I'll show you an example of, this is right here. Is it a single table? Is that what it's called? A single table is what I call it. So what we're going to do here is, the way we're going to be using this, if you go to data, go to what if analysis and go to data table. So the way the data table works is it's going to look on the far left, and it's going to look at the top row of whatever you've selected. So in this case, I'm going to select this range right here. So the top row has got to have numbers, and the far left number or far left column has got to have numbers. If it doesn't, it won't work. So if I did this, this would actually break the table. It wouldn't work if I did this. So make sure you pay close attention to actually select this range right here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to data table. So you got to ask yourself, what is changing as I'm going down? This percentage is changing right here. And what I'm trying to do is figure out what would the payment be if it was 4%, what would it be if it's 4.5%. So what we do is, if this is the column that's changing, it sounds a little weird. And if it doesn't work the first time, just try it in the other section. Just come here, and then you're going to select this cell right here, because this is what's actually changing. And then you just hit OK, and that fills out the table. And you can format it. If it asks you to format it, go ahead and make it look pretty, however you want.
Should you do that again?
Yeah, I'll do that. So let me just format this real quick. If you want it to be red or whatever, it can be like that too. So if you want to, I'll show you one more time. Here we go. So you select this right here. You'll go to data, go to the what if analysis, go to data table, and then right here for column, this is what's changing. You'll select your annual interest rate right there. Hit enter, and that will populate it for you right there. So what I'm going to do is show you a two-way table. So I'm going to copy this and paste it down right here. So let's say, for example, we want to figure out, I'm going to change this up a little bit. So I'm going to make this amount, I'm going to put 26,000 for the loan amount. I'm going to do 28,000 right here. And we'll do 30,000 right here. I'm going to clear this out. So let's say we're trying to figure out what the payment amount would be if I had a loan of 26,000 at 4%, 4.5%, 5%. and so forth. And what we want to do is figure it out for each loan amount. So this is a two-way table, and the way you're going to do it, it's the same principle. You got to make sure you have numbers in the top, numbers on the side, and as well, right here in this corner, this is the key. You want to copy this cell right here and paste it right here in this corner. Right. Hold on, I did that wrong. Copy this right here. Then paste it out, and paste that right there. So if you don't put that payment amount right there, it's not going to work if you're doing a two-way table. So you put that there, and then same thing, you're just going to select the entire table, go to what if analysis, go to data table. So right here, I think it's the same principle. If not, we'll try it. We'll just mess around with it a little bit. So it looks like the column is changing right here. It's the percentage. So I'll click that right here. And then the payment amount is what's changing going across the row. So I'm going to come and click this amount right here. So if I hit OK, that looks good. And a way you can check yourself is, especially for both of these, let's say right here we had 26,000, 4.5%. If I come here, the payment amount was 484. So if I go to 4.5, I should get 484.72. That's exactly matching this number right here. If I come right here to 4.5, you'll notice that those numbers are matching there too as well. So that's a way just to double check, make sure that you've gotten that problem correct. If we did it wrong, this is, let's say I switched this up on accident. Let's say I did, for the row, I did the percentage, and for the column, I did this right here. You'll just look at it, and you can kind of just tell that these numbers aren't matching up correctly, because 484 should be right here in this amount. So
on the test, would we be asked to do two-way and one-way?
He may either just have you do one, he may have you do both. I'm just showing you both right now, just so in case you can know how to do either one. In the back, and then we'll go over here. Or sorry, you in the plaid shirt, yeah.
So G17 to I17, those are actually total payments.
Are what? Sorry.
So those total payments, 26 to 30,000.
Okay, yes. This is the loan amount. This is like if I want to know, oh, what if I had my loan amount at 26,000? Or what would my situation be? Let me correct this real quick. What would happen if, let's see, row, percentage. Oh, I did that wrong. Whoops. That's what happens when you don't select the whole section right there. Row, percentage, hit OK. Okay, so yeah, if I had 28, if I wanted to take a loan of 28,000, what would it be if my percentage was this way, that way? Does that make sense? Oh yeah, this is, so you can just kind of delete that there. What that is this is the payment amount for each situation. Notice how here we have, that's a good question. So here's only the payment amounts, here's the total payments, here's the total interest. I guess that's the difference between a one-way and a two-way table. For a two-way table, you're only trying to find one answer, the payment amount. A one-way table, you're trying to find multiple answers, such as payment amount, total payments, and total interest.
So that 484.72, the upper left hand for the second table?
This one right here? Yeah.
So you said that's necessary. You can't, if you don't have that, it won't work.
Exactly, uh-huh.
What's the
I don't know the details why, it's just how it calculates it, and so you just need to have it there. Yeah, that's the target. If we want the payment amount, we got to put that right there. Exactly. If I want to do total interest, I would copy that into that corner right there. Was there another hand? Are we good? Oh, you got her. Okay, awesome. Okay, I think that's good. Any other questions? Sweet. Okay, lookups. Okay, let me get a drink here real quick. If you want to try and go ahead. All right.
Should I do a question?
Yeah.
I want to do it in the last table. They all came out.
Why they're all negative? I might have Ryan come help you afterwards if that's okay. Yeah, mine are all negative. Sorry, they're just formatted red. Does that make? Okay, there we go. Yeah, exactly. It's going out of your pocket. Awesome. Okay. VLOOKUP. Use VLOOKUP to return the following values for the individual in the drop-down menu in cell. So I think this is pretty. I think we've all kind of done this before. We do a VLOOKUP. So what is our lookup value? We want the ID number. Let's see, hold on. Or the first name is what we're looking for. The table right here. The column index number. So we're looking for the ID number. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3. I'll just put a 3 there. And then the range lookup. This is one I would suggest that you actually fill. Even though it's optional, I suggest if you understand the problem, then in this case, we want an exact match for the ID number. So I hit tab there. That puts a false. I close it off, and it gives me that ID number for Harry. So that looks correct. You would not want an exact match. Sometimes when you're working with a range of numbers, sometimes it'll try and find the closest to that number that you're looking for. So that's when you'll want to use an approximate. I think most cases, though, it's an exact match. Another thing, too, with VLOOKUPs, if you're using a VLOOKUP, as it says right here, your lookup value has to be on the far left column. If it's an H lookup, it's got to be in the far top column, going that way. That's just a reminder. What was that? Let's see. X. Got to remember that. Formula text. There we go. I'm going to put that there here real quick. Wrong one. It's right here. Equals text. Right there. There we go. So this one. So I could drag this down, but it's probably not going to. Oh, whoops. That little. It's not going to work, and the reason why is because my table wasn't locked in above. And so what I would want to make sure to do is come up in here. If you use F4, that will put the $signs on for you. And now, if I drag that down, did it work? Let's see. Oh, that's right too. Yeah, and you got to make sure that this lookup value is oh gosh, let's try this again. 4, enter. There we go. Now it should work. Cool. And then we'll copy this down too. Oh, except this is the occupation. So in that case, we're going to need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's change that 3 to a 5. That's the column we want. So Aurora. So that's the occupation that we're looking for. So 2, use lookup to find the gender based on last name. So right here we'll do equals. We'll do lookup. And so the value, it wants to know the value we're looking for. So Granger. And the vector. So we're trying to find the lookup vector that it should be in. So where is this name? It's a last name, so we're just going to select this list right here. And then the results is in this column right here. So we want to know what the gender is of this person, Granger. And then, so that one's optional. It says optional, but you will need it if you want to get the right answer. So if I hit enter, it's going to say NA. And the reason why it says that is because in order for the lookup function to work, the column, if I click in here again, the lookup vector has to be in alphabetical order. So that's very key to remember. If that's not right, you could possibly get an answer here, but it won't be the right one. if you're on the final. So what you want to do is either you can turn this into a table or just put a filter on it and then come here and go A to Z, alphabetical order. So notice when I put that in alphabetical order, that gave me the answer I was looking for right here. Okay. So that's that one right there. Any questions about that? Exactly. Correct. Okay, so now, yeah, just remember that whenever you're using lookup, make sure to sort whatever vector or whatever list you're looking up, make sure that's in alphabetical order. So for this one, use match and index to fill in the first name based on ID number. Okay, so to do this, we're gonna do index. Hold on, before I do that, just to kind of help anyone who's formula text, I'll grab. VLOOKUP is if, like, let's say what you're looking for, like last name isn't in the far left-hand corner. And in that case, we're going to need to use a lookup function. Right here, so first name, we're going to do index. An array. Okay, so we need to select our entire array. So that's going to be this table right here. I want to make sure that is absolute for both of those. And then the row number, this is where we will do our match right here. So you do match. So we want to try and find the row number using the match function. So the way that looks is now it says, okay, what's my lookup value? So that's going to be this ID right here. And then the array that it's in. So basically what column is that ID in? So I'll come over here and select this column. And then make sure that you absolute both of those two using F4, or absolute that entire column. And then it wants to know the match type. So it says less than, exact match, or greater than. Since it's an ID, we're probably going to want to use an exact match since it's unique. So I'll hit tab there. So I'll close that off. So basically what it's done is basically it's an index going like what row is the index and then what column is it in. So looking at this, we're trying to find the first name. So the column name, you can go ahead and put a 1 right here. That's basically just saying what column is it in. We know that the first name is going to be in the first column. So then you close that off and then I think that should be good. Hit enter. Let's see if that's correct. Harry. We look here. Let's see. Let's find Harry. Right there. Harry Potter G0001. So that's correct. So now if I drag that down, those should all work. If it's not working for you, it's maybe because you didn't absolute these right here. So let me, so you can see that equals text right there. So just so you can see that. Question?
Is there a good trick to knowing when the lookup array includes just that column or the entire thing? Or do you just have to know the function?
When the lookup array should look up the entire column.
So when you highlight the entire table versus when you only highlight last names, for example.
Okay. It kind of depends, like knowing the function. Like in this case with index, you're always going to highlight the entire table, except just don't highlight the columns or the headers. Match index, let me think about that one real quick. So we want to get complicated. So you don't want to go too complicated. Just forget everything I'm going to say here real quick, okay? So for example, you can do another match right here. And you can do a lookup value. We're trying to find the first name. So I could select this cell right here, this text, and then do a lookup array. This will be my array right here. Just that row. And what it's doing is I'm going to look for an exact match. And then what it's doing is it's basically it's gonna look through here, and if it finds a match, like first name is in the first column, so basically that's gonna return a 1. So notice that it still works right here. And if I go to formulas and go to evaluate formula, it's kind of hard to see, but you can walk through it step by step. And if you look, it's highlighted match. And then it goes through and it finds those. And then notice how it's populated. It's found it. It's in row 8, column 1, based off of the 2 matches that I just used. So that's just kind of a way that it's working.
So we're not gonna
I would keep it in mind. At least know the row, and then if you know what column it is in, then you can just type in the number. If you don't want to go ahead and do so, let me see, equals formula text. So those are two different ways. So if we were looking for the gender, what's cool about this is watch. Let's say if I change this right here, gender, oops. Notice how this one automatically changed as I changed this value up here. This one's more dynamic, more flexible, whereas this one's a little more rigid because I hard-coded a 1, basically saying no matter what, it's always going to be in this column for whatever ID number that I'm looking up. That gives you an idea, the difference between the two. So yeah, anything else? Those are good questions, by the way. Cool. All right, we'll go on to text. It says you added some new music files to your computer and you want to include them in your Excel playlist. When you copy the file names to Excel, you get the following data. Using text to columns, sort the data into the correct cells. So let's do it. I'll zoom in here. So basically highlight this, go to data, go to text to columns. In this case, if you notice, if you look at them, there's a hyphen. So we're probably going to want to do delimited, not fixed width, because the widths are off just a little bit. So we're going to do this delimited. So we got tab, semicolon, comma, space. Oh, there's no hyphen. If that's the case, just go to other and type in a little hyphen. I did delimited. Yeah, no, you're good. Is everyone up to this point? All right. So yeah, you'll notice it separates them out for you. Just hit next. So this is right here. You can set the format. What do you want? Do you want to be text? Do you just want to be general? Keep in mind that you can click on each one of these columns right here, and you have to set each one individually if you want. So keep that in mind. That was on one of the homework assignments where you didn't want the zeros to get chopped off at the end. And the way to do that is to convert it to text. So, but we'll just leave it how it is and hit finish. Oh, dang it. So I put it in the wrong spot on accident, actually. So yeah, once you do it, you can't undo. So be very careful about that. Don't do what I just did. But I'll just paste it over there for now. Make sure you get in the right spot. Sometimes I've seen it where if you do it wrong, it will shut down your worksheet too as well. So be very careful. So that leads me to make sure that you save frequently as you're going about doing your assignment. So the flash fill, I think, so if you have a Mac, flash fill is not going to work. So keep that in mind. Flash fill doesn't work in Mac. I've found it works about most of the time if you do it right. It will work. So in this case, though, you just want to use the text to columns. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Yeah, we're going to fix that right now. So good question. And then, oh no, go ahead.
So how did you get it to delete this stuff?
Oh, I did that on accident. I actually wrote over all of my information. So that was my bad. So don't do that. But when you go to separate it out, let me just show you. This is just an example. You don't do this. But if you go to text to columns, and then we'll do delimited, and we'll just do an underscore maybe. If I go to next, right here where it says destination, that's where you want to choose. Click this top left corner right here. That's what I failed to do. So, but I won't do that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to clean it up a bit. It says using new data, reformat the names using formulas so that the artist has spaces, not the underscore. The .m4a is removed from the song name. Everything is properly capitalized and that there are no excess spaces. So looking at the track, I think it all looks good. There may be a space right there on that 11. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do equals. I'm going to select the first track. Actually, let me go back. I'm going to do trim. What that does, it chops off all spaces on the outsides. And then I'm going to select that number and close that off. Hit enter. So that's 1 right there. And then I'm just going to copy that down. Copy. Okay, equals. Let's do formula text. I'm just going to copy that there so you can see that. Bless you. Okay. Bring that down. Okay, so this one looks like we have some extra spaces in here. We want to get rid of this underscore sign. And right up here, it looks like everything's capitalized. We want it to kind of be more proper case, just only the first name is capitalized. So we're going to do that. So the way I go about doing that is, let's get rid of the dashes. And so the way you do that is you do substitute, and you tell it the text that you want. So the alt text is basically what do we want to remove in our formula. So just doing quotes. Whenever you're working with text, wrap it in double quotes is kind of my key. So in this case, we want to get rid of that underscore. And then the new text, we want it to just be a space. So we'll do double quote, put a space, and then close it off with another double quote. And then right there, that's pretty much all you need for that. So if you notice right here, we've removed all of the underscores. Formula text. Okay. So, but now let's get rid of this space down here. So what I'm going to do is around that, I'm just going to do trim and then wrap that in parentheses and then hit enter. And then go ahead and just copy that down, and you'll notice now all of our spaces are gone on the outside. And then the last one, to get this to be lowercase and the first one to be capitalized, we want to use the proper function. Just do that and you'll wrap that around the entire thing. Then hit enter and then copy that down. Oops, didn't work. And there we go. Everything looks nice in that column. So let me see here. I'll copy this down here for you. And then the last one, song title, it wants us to get rid of the M4A, and it looks like there's some extra spaces in there. So we'll just do equals, click on this. Oh, whoops. Let's do a substitute. We'll get this text. The old text we want to get rid of. We want to chop off that part right there. So we'll do .m4a. And then we just want to wipe it out. So the way you do that is just do double quotes right next to each other. That's basically saying don't put anything in. And then hit enter. So that chops it off for us. We'll make it proper. So it's basically the same thing as we did just beforehand. So we'll do proper. Wrap that. And then I'll kind of copy it down so you can see the change. And then we're going to trim up the edges. And we will do that right there. And copy this on down right there. Question?
What are some of the other formulas besides proper that like all case?
Oh yeah, so we got you got lower. That will do everything lowercase. So if you want to keep that in mind. There's also upper. Yep. Those are the main ones I'd say that you need to know. Proper, lower, and upper. And know your left, your right, and your mid. Does anyone want me to go over that? Do you feel okay? You want to go over that? All right, sweet. Okay. Let's do it here real quick. This is for something else. This is for another problem. We'll come to that in a sec. That's for a mega formula part. So let me just go over mid or left, right, and mid. So let's say we want to just pull out Mumford out of this artist right here. So the way you'll do that is you'll do left or do equals left. So basically you give it the text that you want. And then how many, starting from the left side, it's going to go to the right, the number of characters that you want. So Mumford is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters. So you just hit 7, and that's going to pull out Mumford right there. Now let's say we want to get sons. So that's the left. So that starts from, or whoops, the right. Let's use the right function. So that starts from the right side and counts to the left, how many characters you want. So sons is 1, 2, 3, 4 characters long. So I'll just do the text right there and 4 characters, enter. There's Mumford, and there's sons right there. And then the mid, let's do this one. Using the, let's see if we can get the word away from roll away your stone. So the way you do that is you do equals mid, give it your text. So it wants a start number. So basically it wants to know where to start. So it's gonna, you start counting from the left. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, counting the space, 6. That's the starting position that we want to begin at. So I'd put a 6 there and then count how many characters does the word away have? It has 1, 2, 3, 4 characters. So if I put a 4 here and then close that off, I'll get the word away. So the mid basically allows you not to start anywhere in between if you don't want to grab anything before that. So that's those 3 right there. So that's kind of, I would suggest for this, if you feel uncomfortable, go practice the homework assignment where you have to separate the city and zip codes. If you want to get really good, go do that one. And if you can do that on your own, then I would say you should be fine for the final if you can do that. So that's that right there. As far as time goes, so we're gonna go till 7, just so you know. So if you need to leave or not, it's all recorded. But yeah, just so you know. So I'm skipping this one right here. The reason being is because it's the same as this problem right here. So we're going to jump to the mega formula tab, just the way it was set up. So basically for this, it's just a matter of copying and paste and making sure that you keeping everything straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this right here over right here. So it's kind of hard to see. Let's do this. That way you can see the changes as I go. So there's basically, we want everything to reference this cell right here, which is, oh yeah, question? The way I did it is you just click here and just kind of highlight that as I did up here and then hit Control C. I'm using Control C a lot, and so yeah, sorry about that. And then just go and hit Control V over into this cell that will paste it. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so what we're gonna do is cell A8. I'm gonna come here. I'm I'm going to copy that. Well, don't copy the equal sign, just up to right. So Control C. And I'm going to come into here and then replace that. And then, so I'm just going to walk through, I'm just going to go through this as quick as possible. Just I feel like our time can be spent better. Yeah, in the back.
Real quick, so on the test, although we're not going to be doing scaffolding to the left, so you just straight from the right. Start from the beginning, maybe just copy and pasting it. Trying to solve for B4. And on the test, we're not going to be given the A column.
The A column. Usually, I think he will. He'll usually provide you with kind of, there's a homework assignment. I don't know if you remember when you're doing the names and he kind of breaks it down into pieces for you. He'll kind of give you that information. He just wants you to do copy and paste into one, make it one big mega formula. So he'll give you that information. Does that kind of answer your question? What?
We're done the steps. They can just give them steps.
Oh, do you have them?
Yeah. So like, cause I built it out each time, so those were the steps.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I think like he'll give that to him already. So
So
I don't
no
think
need to
that
worry
that's a
about
big worry. It's he's just the matter of copying and pasting is what you need to worry about for the final. So yeah. So let me just do this here real quick, and then I'll create the big mega for you. If you want to go ahead and do it along or just sit tight, we'll just do that. So let's see here. So A4 is fine. We want everything to be A4. So A7, we're going to go in and replace. So I'm going to come here, copy that. 7. A6 will come here. Here, you double click, that kind of highlights the whole thing. I'll paste that. Hit enter. And then A9, come here, copy that. Close that, come here, double click there. Enter. Okay, we've got A4, 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 A8. Okay, let's go to A8. Looks like we have this right here. Copy that. Enter. A7 again. Enter. A6. Do. Okay, I think that should be good. That looks good. Everything is A4. So the way you know if it works is the moment of truth. If I delete all of these columns right here, this continues to work right here. So if you built your mega formula out correctly, then that will work once you delete all these values right here. So that's the formula right there. So that's pretty much it. And then what this is asking is that you just come through and make it work on this right here. So all you have to really do is this is cell B37. Basically, you got to go through and find everywhere it says A4 and change that to B37. Paste it right there. I'm not going to do that now for time's sake, but just so you know, that's what you do. Okay, let's go on to the next section. Okay. So the first question, this is kind of like our counting and summing portion. So it says, how many cells are in the table not including headers? So I think the best way to do this is to use the rows. Now basically it says returns the number of rows in a reference or array. So basically I got the number of rows here. I'm just going to select this entire table. So that function will count the number of rows. And then I'm going to multiply that by, and then I'm going to use the columns function. And I'm going to copy that same table. And so when I hit enter, that should multiply them across. So I got 450 cells right there. The next one, let's see here. So without sorting the data, what is the sum of the 5 highest total bases So in this case, this is gonna be an array. So what you're gonna do is do a sum, and then we're gonna use large. And then it wants to know, okay, so actually, let's scroll back real quick. This will make your lives a lot easier if you do this on the final as well. Highlight this entire table, and all the data, and go to formulas, and then go to create from selection. We're gonna name all of these columns right here. So it says create names from values in the top row. So make sure that's the only box that's checked. So hit OK. And so now when we go to write out our formulas, we'll do equals sum, and then large. So when it wants an array, it wants to know the 5 highest total bases. So if I start typing total bases, because we just named everything, I can go ahead and just reference that. And you'll see that it selects it right down here. Yeah, or show her real quick. And then see, so going on, what it wants here. So since this is an array, you're gonna want the little curly bracket, and you're gonna wanna type the top 5. So you're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then close that off. That's just kind of how it works if you're gonna be using an array. So just remember that, and then add your braces, and then make sure to hit Control-Shift-Enter. Control-Shift-Enter, and that should give you the sum of the top 5 added together. Oh yeah, on a Mac, is it a command? I want to say Command-Shift-Enter. Is it Control? Okay, yeah, I'm not too familiar with Mac, so if anyone has anything. Okay. So for this next one, so there's 2 ways you can go about doing this one. I'll show you, I can show you both. I'll show you the way I prefer though, because you'll probably use this the most because it can handle even complex problems. So this is an array as well. So my rule of thumb is if you're doing an array, most of the times you're gonna use this if you're trying to count something using an array formula, you're always gonna wanna do sum and if. That's like a given pretty much all the time.
So count doesn't work.
No, it usually doesn't if you try using the count function. And so that's why we use the sum, because it's like a bucket and it's going through row by row. And if all the conditions are satisfied, then it's gonna add it, whatever you want to the bucket. It's kind of how I like to imagine it. So our logical test is gonna be, so it says at bats greater than 5,500. So I'll do at bats greater than 5,500. And so the key here, and this is another thing I advise, is make sure that you wrap the parentheses. If you don't, I promise you'll get the wrong answer. So make sure that you wrap parentheses around those every time. And then it says and. So if we're doing and, you want to do the multiplication sign. And then it wants to know the slugging percentage. So I'll type in slugging. There it is. Slugging percentage less than 0.425. 25. Make sure to close that off. And then I'll do the comma. So if it's true, I just want to add 1 to the bucket. That account of 1. And if it's false, I'm going to put a 0. And then I'll close that off twice and then hit Control-Shift-Enter. And I should get 10 right there. So any questions on that? Yeah. Yeah, so the way I would say it, a rule of thumb is when to hit Control-Shift-Enter is when you're trying to do calculations on array, a big column of data. So if it's asking count everything that meets the situation, or I want the sum of all the, yeah, if you're working with anything that's a list, like these names right here at bats, That is a list of values. So in that case, that's when you want to use an array. Anything else? That was a good question. So that's when you do that. I'll go ahead and do these other ones, and then I'll show you the alternative version, what you could do. So how many teams have bats greater than 5,500 and a slugging percentage less than 0.425? So it's pretty much the same thing. So we'll do sum. Another thing I would say too, just to double check, make sure that it's consistent, like his question, if it says 0.425, make sure that his data down here is like in the same format too as well, because if they're not the same, then you probably want to go what's based off in the table. Just a side note. Okay, so sum, if the logical test, we're just going to do another thing in parentheses. It's going to yell at me, that's okay. Do at bats is greater than 5,500. So, or if it's an or, that's when you want to do the plus right there. And then inside that, I'm going to do slugging percentage less than 0.425. Then if it's true, a 1. If not, you'll do a 0. Then I think that should add one more parenthesis on the outside and hit Control-Shift-Enter. 30, I believe. Let's double check that. Let's see. Yeah, 30. Okay, so for this one, it's a little more complex. So we're going to do sum, if, and then all our logic is going to go in here. So it says how many teams have 30 triples or greater than 150 home runs. So basically, the idea is, I'll write it out here. So you're going to want a set of parentheses. And then inside of that, you're going to have another set of parentheses. And it's the first one's going to be the teams, or the triples greater than 30. And then it says or, so I'm going to do a plus right there. And then you'll do another set of parentheses. And it wants to know home runs greater than 150. So that's like the first part. So the reason why we wrap this whole thing in parentheses, and it looks like I'm going to need one more on this side. I'm just saying. And then it says and right here, a batting average greater than 0.27. So that's where you do the multiplication to make sure to get that other set. So I'm going to come do it over here real quick. So we're going to do equals sum if. So we're going to add a set of parentheses, add one more set. We're going to do triples greater than 30. And then go out one set and do and, add another set of parentheses, and we'll do home runs greater than 150. And so all of that and times batting average, which is less than 0.27. So now if I do a 1 and a 0, and then make sure I close those off. So the hardest part on this is making sure that you get the right parentheses. And in the solutions, I noticed in the solution it's wrong in the solution. So the reason being is because it asks you right here a batting average of 0.27. It doesn't have that in the solution. So what I have right here is correct. So just keep that in mind. Question here.
So wouldn't it be greater than 30 triples or, and then put it big home runs and batting average together?
Let me see, home runs. Let me see. Many teams have greater than 30 triples or. Yeah, that problem's poorly worded. And I think what he'll do to make it easier, he'll do something like this in his problem. So these were some other TAs that made this. If it was me, I would write something like this. I'd wrap my parentheses right here. Oh, whoops. Around that way. And a batting average of 0.27. So he'll probably maybe do something like that. It's kind of confusing, I understand. So I think he'll make it a little more clear when he does that.
So the batting average is supposed to go full.
Mm-hmm. So it could be either this or this, but it's also got to have a batting average less than 0.27. So yeah, I think he'll probably add parentheses to make it a little more clear because yeah, sometimes reading the problem can get kind of blurry. Does that answer the other question that there was? Awesome. Okay. That's kind of how I'd go about doing that. For this part, create a frequency analysis for at bats in the table. So the way I do this is you want to use the count ifs function. So what it asks for is you can do as many criteria or a range and criteria as you want for this. Oh yeah, question?
So what's the difference between count if versus sum if? Like, how many teams have the value? Have the at-bats greater than 1500 and slugging percentage? Are we doing the exact same thing?
It's just a different approach, I think. So you could actually use the count. The count ifs will work on this problem right here. And I believe it'll work on this problem here as well. But I don't think it's going to work on this one. So that's why I always recommend using this one because it can handle more complex. The more ands and ors that you start adding, the more complex it gets. This can handle it. But if he's asking you to do something like a frequency chart, you're going to use the count ifs. And so you're just going to select, it wants to know the range, or what is this of? I think, let's read this. Frequency analysis of at bats. You just do at bats. And the criteria is, so this function requires that you put the less than, greater than sign in quotes. So we're going to say that at bats it's got to be greater than or equal to 0. And that at bats, let's do it again. Why is it not? Oh, I got to make sure I put my closing quotes right there.
So is there no way to make it reference?
Oh yeah, sorry, that is correct. So you actually do want to do that. So instead of 0, you want to reference that right there. Hold on, I have an extra quote right there too as well. So you want to throw that right there and put an and right there. That way you can reference that cell. Great catch. And then you'll do the same thing again at bats. And then you're going to do in quotes, this time you want to be less than or equal to quotes and percent sign. And then we're going to do the max, which is this one right here. So that looks good. Now let me see if I hit enter. That's what I get. And if I drag it down, that looks correct. So just so you can see what that is, I'll put it right here. Formula text, I'll put this right here. I'll let you write that down real quick. The ampersand is used to join text. That's just Excel's way of joining text to like a reference cell. So in this function, it requires, that's the thing, you kind of have to learn each function because each one works a little differently. Like as you noticed up here, we didn't have to wrap anything in quotes, which I think is pretty slick. I like that. But the count ifs function, it really wants you to put those equals and greater than, less than signs in there, or else it won't work. It's just kind of how that function is designed. Cool, cool. All right. Any other questions? We all good? Awesome. Okay. So this one's not too bad. So this is the miscellaneous calculation. So this is just like, for like random stuff that couldn't be covered in any other section got thrown into this section right here. So right here, it's not too hard. You just want to convert it. So from miles to kilometers. So you'll just do equals convert the number that you want to convert. And then so if you don't know it off the bat, you'll just kind of have to scroll through here. So there's mile. And then we want to convert it to kilometers. So if we scroll, let's see. Does anyone, let's see here. Why is it not letting me scroll through? Let's try it again. So if we hit kilometer. Oh, did I use the wrong? I may have used this wrong. Let me try it one more time. So let's go through here. We want this statute mile. Yeah. And then if I do, I know it's km, I'm pretty sure. So we'll try that and see if it works. Is that correct? Or is it, let's take a look here. 35.406. 35.406. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it automatically filters the list based on the first thing you choose. It won't let you convert, like you couldn't convert kilometers to pascals or to watts. And so it says, okay, convert to miles, because that's a normal, like it's a distance measure. And it'll only give you distance ones after that, which is why you can scroll. And then the K is signifying a multiple. So K is for kilo. So it had an N in that list, but you have to know to put K in front of it. And the lowercase k lets it know that you want a multiple of 1,000.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't know that. Sweet, thanks. Sometimes that's what I was trying to figure out just now, recently. Let me see. Convert. If you type, so click your number, and then if you hit comma, I don't know, if you're on a Mac, it might not work. That's maybe my thing, because when I hit that comma, it pops up for me. But if you're on a Mac, it might not do that for you. So if that's the case, what I would do is, let's just see here real quick. Just type in, I'll just type in Excel, converter. No, what would be a good word for that? Convert arguments. Convert function. So right here, so type in convert function. If you can't get a list to pull up, go out into the internet, and then you can type in, just do a search, and you can do kilometer, and then just start, or km, or just start perusing and see if you can find what it is that you're looking for. So in this case, it was yards cubed. So let's go through here real quick. There's yards squared. Okay, there's some cubes. Someone sees it, yell at me.
It's at the bottom of the cubes.
Is that the bottom of the cubes? Oh, thank you. Okay. And then we're going to, what is it we're going to again? Feet? Okay. Okay. Awesome. There we go. Convert to the 3. Is it worked? Cup. Awesome. And then teaspoon, is it TB? TBS? All lowercase, maybe, just in case. Awesome. That's that right there. Right here, this is just the nearest odd. You're just going to do, this is pretty simple, just odd, select that number. That rounds to the nearest odd. If you want to round to the nearest even, just do even, select that number. So let me get this here for you. Text. Okay, so odd. Get that for you. We'll get this here. so there's that there. 2 decimal places equals round our number. And then if it's 2 digits, then you just do 2 right there, 2 out from the decimal place. So this one, 2 significant digits. I don't think I'd ever be able to think this up on my own, ever. And so I don't know if he'll give you something like this, but if he does, this is where it's important to know your in-class practice sheets very well, because I would never think of this up off the top of my head. So basically, you want to know somewhere that you can go to figure out what it is. Question? Yeah, that's just the format. I'll change that here just real quick. Let me finish, what I'll do. So, so I don't know. If you look, this is actually how you get the log. Enable. So if I just copy this right here and come over, just hit the X, and then paste, and then hit enter. That's how you'd get 2 significant digits. And that's, I guess, in science. Is there an easier way? What? Yeah, go ahead and show. I'm totally open. I just know that's just kind of how I've always done it.
So the easier way, the way that the round function works is that when you give it the number of decimal places that you want to use, so for example, equals round, this number of digits says how many do you want to round it to after the decimal point. But if you use a negative number, it will count backwards from the decimal point. So 2 significant digits is just all the way up until you've counted down to where there's only 2 digits left. And so you want to go a negative number all the way up until you get to there. And so if you look here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 that we have to do. So we have to do -4. Which gets you the same answer. But the way you can figure out that it has to be -4, you're going to use another round function like this. And you're going to say, I want to round this to 0 digits, which will just trim off that decimal place. And then you ask it, well, what's the length of that? How many characters are there? Just up to the 0 digit place. And you say, if I only want 2 characters, I'm going to do 2 minus that answer. That's 2 significant digits. If I want 3, I would say 3 minus the length of that. And the reason that works is that the length of this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so that's what this tells me right here. And then 3 minus that will give me the number of negatives that I need to go until I get there. So 2 minus length of round F11 at 0 decimal places will give you -4. And -4 will count back 4 from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and will get you that number. I probably should have said instead of F11, it should be, instead of F15 right here, sorry, this should be F11. There we go.
Awesome.
So that's 3 significant digits, and then 4 significant digits, etc. So if you just want 2, you're just going to do 2 minus the length of it rounded down with no decimals, and that'll give you 2 significant digits. It's a little bit easier way than the log 10 and stuff.
Yeah, I like that. Cool. Yeah. No, it's significant digits is like starting from the far left of your number going to the right. Am I correct? I think that's what a significant digit is.
We have 5.
Mm-hmm.
For 1 significant digit, just use 5.
Yep.
It's counting 10 places.
Yeah. So the rule of thumb I'd say here, though, is if you can't think of that up on your own, know where you can go to find it in one of your files. I don't. I think that would work too.
The number will still be that whole long number, which is formatted. So if you want,
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, basically, if you want it to be hard coded that way, you'd have to use a formula. If it's formatted behind the scenes, it's still the same number. Okay. All right. On to the last part. The VBA portion. So, yeah, I think we can do this. My word of advice for this part, I feel like if you can do these two problems, you should do fine on the final for the VBA portion. So if you feel comfortable and feel like you got a hang of what we're going to go over right now, then I think you should do good. Question?
Yeah, so,
To right here?
yeah. It's 13.
Right here?
Yeah, the answer there is not the nearest even number.
Yeah, it looks like it's going up. I think the function is only meant to go up, not down. That's probably what the round would probably do a better job at doing, if that's what you're looking for. That's a good question, though. Cool. Anything else? Okay, sweet.
Can you classify it about all of those, all the different types of like even, odd, round up, round down?
Yeah. Cool. Let me see. What else was I gonna suggest for this portion? I think it'll come to me here in a sec as I'm talking. Okay. We'll just go through and we'll start. So it says, create a macro that does the following to any cell. Makes the font bold, makes the fill light green, makes the font size 16 times New Roman, and assign the following shortcut, Control+H. So we'll go, let's do it. So it looks like, oh, so this is, if your document doesn't have the developer tab, you want to go to File, go to Options, and go to the, I think it's the quick access. It's been a while since add-ins. Go to add-in. What?
Customized ribbon,
Is it customized ribbon?
and then the right side.
Oh yeah, there it is, developer. So check that and then hit OK. And now you should have the developer tab up here. So we're going to do a macro. So the way to do that, you'll go to record macro. And then you can name it whatever you want. We're going to put an H here. Oh, actually, I'm going to stop that real quick. Before you do it, make sure that you select the cell that you want to format that way that you want it. And then go to record macro. So you do Control+H. Then it will work in the entire, in this workbook. Hit OK. There's already a macro assigned to that key. Oh, it's because I probably made it. You should assign a different keyboard shortcut. So let's see this. Let's go to look at my macros here real quick. Oh, that might be because I have the answer key open. Yep. So let's just close it down. Cancel. I'm going to shut down my answer key. No, that's what we're working on. Yes, that's the one we're going to. Okay. Don't save. Okay, let's try it now. Let's see if it works. Macro 1, Control+H. Awesome. So now it's recording. So anything I do, it's going to remember. So we're just going to come to home. We're going to make it bold. We're going to fill it in green right here. And then light green, make it font size 16 times New Roman. I'll type it in. There it is. And I think that's it. So now once I'm done, just come down. You can either come down here or go back to the developer tab and hit stop recording. So how do we know if it works? Well, we'll just type in Chase and then it worked. I'll just hit Control+H. Boom, there it goes. So that's our macro. So does anyone want to explain what the difference between a macro and a function is? Does someone know what the difference is? If not, I'll just go ahead and tell it. Okay, right here. Go for it.
Oh, no, actually, I just said.
Oh, he just had a question. Okay, all right. No worries. All right, so I'll just explain it. So if you open up your VBA code, you'll notice right here you have your modules. So if you want to create a module, the way you do it is you would go to insert and just come to module. But notice that one was made for us already. If you double click that, notice here, look right here, macro 1. That's our macro that we just recorded. And basically what it did is it just wrote all that code for you right there. So the difference between a sub and a function is a sub will do work for you, kind of like what we just did right here. We highlighted it green, we changed the font color, and when we hit Control H or when we hit play or go, it's going to do all that work for us. However, a function, you give it an input and it's going to give you back, it should always give you back an output. So that's kind of the difference. A sub won't always give you an output, but a function should always give you an output. So, for example, like the sum function, if I have the numbers 1, 2, and 3, I'm going to use a sum function. I'm going to give it some input, and I should get back output, which is the number 6. So that's kind of the difference between the two right there. So going back to the code right here. So let's look at the problem real quick. I'm going to split my screen. So it says right here, create a user-defined function named direction that uses the select case method to change the following abbreviations: NSEW into their full names, north, south, east, west. If done properly, the blue boxes will populate with the correct answers. So it looks like he already has in here some functions, but they're not working yet. So that's what we're going to do. So coming over to our code, you type in, so I'm going to do the easy way, like as most simple as possible to help you when you're taking your final. So you're just going to do, you got to write function, the name of your function. So in that case, direction. So I'm going to type in direction. Make sure you're spelling everything correctly, because if you don't, that might cause something not to work. And then in parentheses is where we're going to list all our arguments. And so what is an argument? Argument is basically your input that you want to go into the functions. So in this case, you can name it whatever you want. In this case, we're going to call it ABRV. And then if you hit enter, you'll notice Excel kind of tries to help you out, and it went ahead and added end function there. So all of our code's going to go in between. So it says here, oh, question? You can do it in the same module, or you can do it in a separate module. It's just however you want to organize your code. If it makes sense to you to do it, or feels more comfortable for you to do it in another module, you can go ahead and do that.
But these two are not.
No, they're not related, because see this line? Yeah, when you do an end sub, like you'll start it, you got to make sure you put an end so it knows that your code isn't, your functions aren't, and your subs aren't interfering with each other. Right here.
So when we need to define the, like, ABRV, do we need to put it as a string?
Yeah, that's, I'll come back to that real quick. I'm just doing it as simple as possible. So if you wanted to get by, you could get by, and then I'll show that next. Was there a question over here? I would suggest you do it. Yeah, option explicit is good. Usually if you open up a new module, no, it doesn't. Maybe not. I thought it did. It's good to have option explicit. What it does is it prevents you from messing up. Basically, it will yell at you if you try to create a variable without defining it, or use a variable without defining it. It will yell at you saying like, hey, you haven't defined a variable yet in your function or your macro or your sub, whatever it is. So yeah, that's good to have. Thanks. Is there anything else so far? Sounds good. All right. So it says we want to use a select case method. So to tell you the truth, I don't use the select case as often. I prefer like if then statements, but For some people, they really like them. So I don't know that much about them, but let's say I didn't. I was taking the final. I'm like, oh man, what is select case? So I'm just going to type in VBA select case. So I'm just going to click on this first one. And if I scroll down, usually I'll find an example or something like that. So right here, I got select case. And this looks like it's for numbers. So I'll tweak it here a little bit. So it looks like select case and then whatever your input is. So I'm going to come over to my code. I'm going to type select case. And so ABRV, that was our input. So we're just going to go ahead and use ABRV. And then I'm going to put, looking back at this code right here, it looks like it says and select. So I'm going to copy that right there. And then just notice case right there. So and select. I'm going to put that right there. So now I'm just going to tab in a little bit. I'm going to do case. So basically what is happening is this, whatever, okay, it's going to yell at me a little bit. This gets placed in this case. So basically just going to do case and then in quotes, because whenever we're dealing with text, we want to wrap it in quotes. And so I'm just going to do N. And then I'm going to do our output. So whenever you want to output something from your function, you type in the function, you do an equal sign, and then we're going to do north. So I'm going to copy, I'm going to paste that. Oops. I'm going to do that 4 times. Then I'm going to go through, I'm going to change this to south. Sorry, it's not in order. We'll do east. And we'll do west. Cool. So let you type that real quick.
Is it case sensitive?
Yes, it is. That is case sensitive, I believe. So keep that in mind. And so I believe. Oh, yes, thank you. If I come in here and hit select, I think it should work. Let's see. Yeah. So let's do. So what, sometimes if it's not saved properly, it might not work. So we want to make sure it's an XLSM. We're going to change that so that we can make that proper. So now if I save it, so that's very important. If it's not an XLSM and if you try saving it, all your code that you write will get wiped out. So make sure it's the proper file type. Before you submit it, make sure it's an XLSM file when you save it. Because if it's not, then the server will get it and it won't have any of the VBA code to grade. So that's, I suggest that. Let's take a look here. And so equals, did I spell direction right? Something might be right here. Direction. And then cell C17. Hit enter. There we go. And yeah, question?
So I know that we're I know, but how does it know that it's not working?
That should be in the north. Because right here, I referenced cell C17. That's like my input. That's going to go into the ARBV here in my code right there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he would give us, it would be a formula.
Yeah. So correct. So another thing, if you don't know how to do this, but I find it handy, that I think this will help. you can debug if you click on the side right here and it turns red. And if I hit, if I come to my function here and hit enter, you'll notice over here it highlights yellow. And basically it hasn't ran the code through all the way yet. So what it does is if I hit F8, it steps through it code line by line. And so if I hit F8, it's going to go down. So it's going to say, okay, whatever is in the ABRV, in this case, is it equal to N? And if it is, it's going to step down to the next line of code, and it's going to assign it. It's going to jump out, and it's going to exit the function. Let's try it on East, I think would be a good example. So if I do the same thing, hit enter, and then if I start hitting F8, it goes through line by line, and it skips over if there's not a match. And then, but when it is E, then it's going to step into that next line right below it, hit enter, and it's going to end the function right there. So that's like as simple as like I think I could explain it. The key points I guess I want to point out is make sure you get the right name, make sure that you get the right parameters. If you want to have more than one parameter, you can do let's just create another example. Let me think here real quick. Let's just say we want to do the area of a square. So I'm going to come up with some numbers here. So length. Hold on, I'm going to stop this real quick. If you want to go out of debug mode, hit that. Make sure you hit stop. So length and height. Or width. Let's just do width. Let's say this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, 21, 2, 4, 6. Okay, and then this is the area. So in this case, we'll do another function. We're going to call it area. And we're going to create our variables. We can do length. And then if we want to make another variable, we just do a comma and we come up with another name. Width is what we call it. I spelled it. And then hit enter and it kind of does that for us, end function. So then what we want to do is it's pretty simple. Just do area. That's our output. Whenever your output's going to be the name of your function. Right there, area. So you do area equals, and then you just type in length, and you just do the math times the width. So that's all you really need. So if I come over here and do equals area, so I'm going to do my length, and then I'm going to do my width right here. Because those are my arguments or my inputs. If I hit enter, then it goes ahead and it does the math for me. I can drag that down. So those are the, I think if you have those concepts down, you should be good. As was mentioned here, I was going to come back to your question. So that's the simple way. If you know what that parameter is supposed to be, such as it's going to be a number, so you can do as integer, and this one you want to do as integer. That's basically saying you're reserving space in memory. It's just more efficient for the computer if you can do that, because it's reserving that space, and so it's more efficient to do it that way. And then if you want on the outside, we know that our output's going to be a number. So if we're only working with integers, it would be safe to put integer. If we think there could possibly be a decimal place, then you want to do like something like a double, which is a variable type that can handle that. So that's it. And if I hit enter or save, you'll notice that the function continues to keep on working. I think that's about it. We have 15 minutes left. Is there any questions in general that you guys have in the far back?
For the last couple of classes, we're watching the Monte Carlo videos and stuff like that. That's not gonna be on there.
No, that's not going to be on the test. No Monte Carlo, no power. Yeah, power pivot. Is that what it's called? Yeah, power pivot. There will be pivot tables, but no power pivot. So keep that in mind. Anything else? I can go briefly through the brief slide deck if you want me to. So if you're still like having trouble grasping the whole VBA thing and feel like you could use a little more, you're trying to understand, there's a PowerPoint that was created by a couple TAs a while ago. You can download that and just kind of walk through it. If you have any questions, I think just come to us afterwards and we can answer those for you if there's still something unclear. But other than that, I think that's about it. I won't hold you guys longer than needed. So I think that's it. So thanks, guys, very much.